Welcome everyone to this JNUC session, automating Apple device management with Jamf Pro and Okta Workflows. My name is Vincent Bonan and I'm a sales engineer here at Jamf. And today I have a pleasure to co-present this session with Emily Wendell, product manager at Okta. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Vincent.
So Emily, can you tell us a bit about your position at Okta?
Sure. So my name is Emily Wendell. I'm a product manager for the Okta Integration Network, and my teams are responsible for the Okta-built provisioning integrations and workflow connectors.
Great. Thanks, Emily. Now, what will happen during this session? First, I will let Emily explain us what is Okta Workflows. Then, it will be my turn to show you how to integrate Jamf Pro within Okta Workflows. After that, a quick and easy flow tutorial, followed by other use cases and benefits. And finally, some remarks and takeaway. So let's jump in. Emily, the stage is yours. Maybe could you first remind us who is Okta?
Sure. So for those unfamiliar with Okta, it's an identity provider that helps companies manage and secure user authentication into applications, and for developers to build identity controls into applications, web services, and devices. It can be complicated to manage identities. Automation is here to help, which is why I want to introduce Okta Workflows. Okta Workflows is a way to automate actions across apps to manage complex identity scenarios at scale. We use if this, then that logic combined with Okta's pre-built connector library. This gives you the ability to connect to any publicly available API. One of the great things about Workflows is that you don't need to be a developer to use it. The no-code platform allows you to drag and drop variables from one card to another. We have an assortment of built-in function cards to add additional logic and give you the flexibility you need to solve complex use cases. In our catalog today, we have over 40 connectors to some of the most used applications in the market. Within these connectors, we have over 400 actions and events. And if there's something missing, we have custom API actions for each connector, which allows you to connect to additional API endpoints. There's also a generic API connector for APIs we don't support yet. Soon, we'll allow all of you to build your own connectors. More on that later. All right, so we are both so excited to announce that we have a Jamf connector for Okta Workflows. Using the Jamf Pro Classic API, we have a collection of 17 actions you can perform out of the box. We used our new Workflows product connector builder to create the connector. It allowed Vincent and I to collaborate on development. I do want to add that at the time of this recording, the connector is still in development and QA, so the final product might have slight differences than what you see today.
Yeah, and if you want more information about this new connector, feel free to search for it on marketplace.jamf.com. Please mind that at the moment, this connector is only compatible with Jamf Pro's Classic API. But nothing stops you from creating your own custom API calls to other solutions. That's one of the cool features of this product. Thanks, Emily, for introducing Okta Workflows. Now let's explore what are the possibilities offered by this new connector. A quick first example with what I call just-in-time department provisioning. So on this slide, you can see that we have a trigger event on Okta's side. A user profile has been updated and the user has been moved to the Seattle location. and it will trigger an Okta workflow with a if-then function. And if the Seattle building doesn't exist in Jamf Pro, then we will run an API command to automatically create that Seattle building in Jamf Pro so that the user profile in Jamf Pro will be updated accordingly. And finally, we can even inform the IT admins that a new building has been automatically created in Jamf Pro. But before playing around with those flows, we first need to create a new connection between Jamf Pro and Okta Workflows. So step 1, log into your Okta Workflows tenant, and in the Connections tab, click New Connection. Search for the Jamf Pro Classic API connection and enter your Jamf Pro credentials there. And by the way, Emily, can you remind people how to request an access to the Okta Workflows feature if they want to try it?
Of course. If you're an existing Okta customer, you can access Okta Workflows from the Workflows console link within the Okta admin dashboard. If you're new to Okta, you can create a trial tenant at developer.okta.com.
Perfect. Now, step 2, create a new flow. Click on the Add App Action button and search for the new connector there. Select the action you would like to try, and voila. There is no step 3 because the integration process is over, and you can now start integrating Jamf Pro actions in your workflows. And those are the same steps for most built-in connectors, right, Emily?
Yes, we have the same steps for all of our pre-built connectors, such as Slack, Zoom, Microsoft, Google, Salesforce, and more.
Great. We now have a working connection, and it's time to build our first real-life flow. Nothing too complicated, rest assured. So for today's example, I want to demonstrate how Okta Workflows can be leveraged to run MDM commands following a schedule. In this case, I want to restart all my meeting room iPads every Sunday at 3 a.m. So you can send mass actions command on Jamf Pro, but you can't schedule them on a recurring basis just like that. So let's use Okta Workflows to solve that issue. So let's dive in. On the prerequisites side, first go on your Jamf Pro instance and create a new device group. Don't forget to note its ID in the URL. And this smart group will contain all the meeting room iPads you will want to restart on a recurring basis. Then go to your Okta tenant and open the Workflows console. Don't hesitate to contact Okta support if you don't see the Workflows console shortcut there. Now that we are inside the Workflows console, I always recommend first to go on the Connections tab, so this is the third tab, and check one more time that your connections are already set up and working. Now that your connections have been set up, go back to the first tab, the Home tab, and from there you can click on the New Flow button. It will open a tab with an empty Canva, and inside, the first thing to do is to create a new trigger. So this trigger will be a scheduled event. And let's configure it to run every Sunday at 3 a.m. So in this example. Okay, so the workflow has been created, and now the trigger event has been defined to a recurring basis. Now we can click on the Add App Action button, and you can find here your Jamf Pro connector, and you can select the Read Mobile Device Group action. This action allows us to list members' IDs and names of a smart or static device group. If you remember the ID of your Jamf device group, now is the time to put it in the ID field. For example, with API calls, they are based on IDs. So this is why we need to get the ID of this group in Jamf Pro, and we need to put it inside the input field. And based on that input field, the API call will give us a lot of information, such as the group name, is it a smart group or a static group, and who are the members inside this group. Next, click on the Add Function button and add a new function called For Each Ignore Errors. This action is the graphical version of a for each loop that you could write, for example, in a classic script. But the beauty of that tool is that in here, you don't have to code anything. You don't have to learn any syntax, because you just have to bring that function, and then you just have to drag and drop the members to the input list. And so this will be the input of your loop. And once the function has been added, simply drag and drop the members variable in the for each input field. It will iterate through all group members and call for a child flow to perform an action on each of them. Obviously, we haven't created any child flow yet. So let's click on the New Flow button to create a new one. This will open a new tab with an empty flow ready to be configured. Okay, we are on a new tab in a new flow, and we'll name this new flow Restart iPad because it will be its only purpose. And this time we will select a different trigger. It will be a child flow trigger. This kind of trigger is interesting because we can build our own input variables depending on our needs: integers, strings, JSON objects, list, Boolean, etc. In our case, we will create a new variable named member, and it will be an object containing the member's ID and name. Now click on the Add function and select the Get Object function. What is the purpose of this function? Well, you will get an object as an input, and you can define the path to get a specific key inside it. So you want the value at the end, and the output will be the device ID. Now drag and drop your member variable in the object field and enter the ID key name in its path to only collect the device ID. Once we have this device ID, now is the time to add the Send Mobile Device MDM command action. Don't forget to select the correct command to send. In our case, it will be Restart Device. But you can see on that screenshot that we offer a lot of MDM commands that you can send through Okta Workflows. Again, you can drag and drop the device ID variable to the mobile device ID field. And that's it for this child flow. Here is a good example of a simple but efficient flow. We gather data from its input variable, we extract a specific value from this variable, and then we pass it to an application action. We can now save it and enable it with a button at the top of the screen, and we can go back to the main flow waiting for us in the previous tab. Our child flow now active, you can find and select it in the child flow list, and you will see that the input variable member will show up. It will take each item of the input list and it will process it. All right, now is the time to save and activate this flow. It will automatically run on the next occurrence. But the next occurrence is next Sunday at 3 a.m. and we don't want to wait until there. So there is a way to test it right now. You can just click on the test button and see the workflow running live. So let's click that test button, and you can see here that we will simulate a trigger, and then it will iterate through all the members that have been found in the group number 14, and it will send the restart command to each device. And if you go back to your Jamf Pro instance at the same time, you'll see that under a device inventory management tab, a restart device MDM command should be pending. And be careful though, because There is no confirmation pop-up whatsoever with Okta Workflows, so please don't send a web command to all your fleet, okay? And I hope this quick tutorial gave you an idea of the tremendous possibilities offered by this integration. And it's not over, because I would like to share a couple other use cases with you today. First one, let's imagine that you want to assign a Microsoft Office 365 license to a user. As soon as the license is assigned to this user, they will get an access to Office 365 in their Okta dashboard. So the user just have to refresh their Okta dashboard and they will get the Office 365 license. But with Okta Workflows and Jamf Pro, you can go one step further and automatically distribute any related application to their device, either Mac, iPhone, or iPad. And in this case, you just saw a Jamf helper prompt notifying the user that an Office 365 license has been assigned to them and that the Office 365 suite has just been installed. The second one is my favorite because it allows you to build a conditional access workflow based on Jamf Pro Smart Group membership and what we can define as compliance criteria, such as is the computer encrypted, is the computer operating system obsolete, is the computer missing some critical applications, etc. In this example, one of our computers isn't compliant because its user, John Appleseed, manually disabled 5V. So you can check that in the user inventory, and here 5V is not encrypted. And therefore, the non-compliant computer will trigger an Okta Workflows that will put John in an Okta user group, preventing him from accessing several critical applications. So if John will receive a Jamf pop-up that will alert him that his computer isn't compliant anymore and that he has been restricted from accessing several Okta applications. And our user can confirm that by going to his Okta dashboard and discovering that some application has been locked. Back on John's computer, our user just has to follow the remediation steps provided by Jamf. And a few moments later, his computer inventory will be updated accordingly, making it leave the not compliant computers. Then, on Okta Workflows, it will trigger a workflow, and that status will be reflected on Okta's groups, and therefore John will get his access back to all his Okta applications. And what we just achieved is something that we can consider as similar to Microsoft Intune conditional access feature. But in this case, you can choose any kind of compliancy criteria directly in Jamf Pro. And please note that Okta already offers some conditional access features based on IP location, etc. And here Jamf Pro can extend this feature with device-based compliancy. The last use case I would like to present is a bit more technical. I'll show you how you could use Okta Workflows to secure your script when an API call is needed. It's a known fact that passing Jamf API credentials to a script running on a user computer can be considered as a flaw due to the risk of credential interception. With Okta Workflows, instead of passing your API credentials in script, you could instead use a webhook that will redirect you to a flow that will do the API work for you. Here, I simply built a 9-line script that will create a new static user group on Jamf Pro, because this is just an example. This is something that requires an API call, and that's something we'll do with Okta Workflows. You can see here that there is no password involved whatsoever. We just have a webhook that will trigger an Okta workflow. But before that, let's put that script into a policy and that policy available in Jamf's self-service. We run that policy through the self-service, so there is no password involved, only a webhook. And that webhook will trigger an Okta workflow. You can see here that we are getting the variable mySupergroup from the script, and we will be doing the API call from Okta Workflows. And if we go back on Jamf Pro, we refresh the static user groups. Here you have your My Supergroup static group created. And you can witness that we have executed a script without any password, but it sent an API call nonetheless through Okta Workflows. Okay, Emily, could you tell us a bit more about templates?
Sure. So we know that building workflows can sometimes be complex, especially if you're new to workflows. In your Workflows console, you'll see a tab for templates, which are pre-built flow packs that you can import directly into your org. We will have Jamf templates available very soon, just like the one we showed. And you can see here just how simple it is to click and add in the template.
Thank you. And here I wanted to list other ideas that came across our minds, but this is only the tip of the iceberg. It's up to you to find other use cases. But for example, you could automatically create and provision departments and buildings, just like we showed you at the beginning of this session. But you could also map exotic user attributes between IDPs and Jamf, so identity providers and Jamf Pro. For example, you want to collect a user's manager email, you want to collect a user's Salesforce ID, any kind of data that you could collect with Okta Workflows, you will be able to pass them as extension attributes in Jamf Pro. You could also create advanced application request workflows. So it means that a user could just click a button in their self-service and it would assign them an Okta license, for example, an Office 365 license, and it will deploy the Office 365 applications on their device all in one. You could log devices when users are being offboarded. So this is something that we will come back later in this session. And finally, you could even run bulk API commands. So you want to mass wipe devices, you want to mass update devices. This is something that you could easily do with a for each loop, just like we showed you in that previous tutorial. To summarize a bit, here are the benefits we could keep in mind. First benefit for me is that you can use Jamf Pro's API without any code. APIs is something that is frightening a lot of people because they are lacking the scripting skills. And with Okta Workflows, anyone can build a simple workflow to do API commands on their devices. You can find new ways to automate device management, and you can automate repetitive tasks. And finally, in my opinion, it's a more secure way to use API in your own scripts rather than passing your passwords in clear. Okay, it's almost time to wrap up, and here are some final thoughts for you today. First, I just want to remind you all that we offer API endpoints for most of our products, including the new Jamf Pro API, Jamf Pro Text API, and Jamf Schools API. Even if we don't offer yet built-in connectors for those APIs, nothing stops you from creating custom API calls within Okta Workflows. It's a more manual process, but it works fine nonetheless. And if you want to learn more about those APIs, don't hesitate to go on developer.jamf.com and you will find a ton of useful information. But before going the custom API way, Emily told us that there is the connector builder feature at the beginning of the session. Emily, can you tell us a bit more about this feature?
Sure. So this feature allows anyone to build and submit their own connectors, either to their local org or to the Okta integration network to be part of our catalog. This feature is currently in early access, so please reach out to me if you are interested.
Well, that's it for this session. If you want to learn more, feel free to check Daniel McLaughlin's session exploring more ways to automate user offboarding. Daniel will explain how to leverage Okta Workflows to streamline this kind of process. And Daniel's session will happen in a few hours, so don't forget to check your agenda. And on that, I want to thank you all for watching, and thank you, Emily, for being with us today. Enjoy the rest of your JNUC 2021, everyone.
Yes, thank you for having me, and I'm so excited to see what our customers will build together.